Welcome to episode 153 of The Route. The Route is a glorified coffee chat and podcast form that takes you from A to B with a new guest every episode. I'm your host, Christopher Nascimento, and let's get started. Before we get into today's guest, just a couple things to cover as always. First, if you haven't already, the pod is available on all major audio platforms: Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, and many others. I believe there's 9 to 11. It's always ever changing, but you can find that on our podcast page if you want to be redirected. Additionally, just take the time to follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, allows the podcast to grow just a bit easier from there. And if you haven't already on that note as well, follow us at all of our new channels. So rather than the Route Sports, it's now the Route Cast, all platforms, including YouTube. You can find us there. And then that's how you can kind of find clips, maybe the magazine covers that come out with each new guest every episode. And then also just the video podcast if you'd like to see it from there on YouTube. But other than that, we can now get into today's guest. Today's guest is brought to you by Zoom. In the world of partnerships, there's a simple principle: you adapt or you die. In this fast-paced industry, you can't afford to miss a beat, and that's where Zoom will help you win each and every time. Zoom provides premier real-time data insights for partnerships across broadcast, streaming, and social like no one else. They're always ready, and detailed analytics help you get the upper hand and save time in your day-to-day reporting. So if you're ready to upgrade your reporting today, make the smart choice and choose Zoom. With that, today's guest. I'd now like to welcome someone that perfectly embodies the power of coffee chats. I've met with today's guest through a mutual connection of ours a couple years back, and since then we've been able to connect on various occasions, meet with other like-minded people, and go on from there. And for this person's route, they started a video production business coming out of university to now building it to what it is today, and recently partnering with another business to kind of move on forward. So I'd now like to introduce co-founder at Surgo Studios, Alexei Dela Cuesta. Welcome to the Route. How's it going?
Hey man, doing pretty well. Thank you for having me on the pod, Chris. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Long time in the making. Probably just had to switch it from sports to overall routes, but I'm glad to have you
Yeah,
on.
no,
Yeah,
for sure. A long time in the making.
yeah. So I guess with that said, the name of the podcast is The Route. So maybe take us through yours. Where did it begin, and how did we get to where we are today?
Oh man, yeah. So you really kind of want to make me tell my whole story, huh? So
That's the name of the game.
um,
That's The Route.
yeah. So I guess we're all start. My parents, they came from the Philippines. They immigrated from the Philippines to Canada, and I was born and raised in Ottawa, Ontario, in Canada. And I grew up in an apartment, really. So didn't come from a family of wealth. Again, my parents were from the Philippines, and they immigrated here, and then they started working blue collar jobs. My mom was a nanny, and then my dad worked at a almost like a factory, pretty much. But yeah, I grew up. My mom always brought me to her work, and her work was in Westboro. So for those who don't know what Westboro is a pretty wealthy neighborhood. And so I pretty much went there every single day. Grew up. I would say that would be my second home or second neighborhood, is where my mom worked at. Um, the family she worked for, I would consider them my second mom and second dad. And the son they raised was, I would say, my brother, right? But it was really interesting because I came from a place where we weren't really wealthy, and then going into an environment where wealth was just like there was pretty interesting. So I got kind of two sides of the coin. But I went to elementary school, and during elementary school, I really got a passion, or that's where I got exposed to video production. And that came from my brother, right? He was editing videos and making videos all the time on YouTube and for school projects. And I was always there sitting next to him, just watching him edit these videos, these really funny prank videos he was making, and other videos he was making for school. And I thought I really wanted to kind of do that too, is make videos with my friends, and for school projects whenever there's a time where a video was a option for one of the projects, I would always take that, right? And then in middle school, created a lot of videos, made my own YouTube channel, right, with some friends. It was a prank channel, which is pretty cool. I was the editor and videographer for that channel. We grew up to quite a few subscribers. A couple of videos got like thousands of views, and back then it was a lot for us. So we did that, as well as in grade 9, we continue it, but we kind of slowly stopped. But yeah, in high school was interesting because um, that passion for video kind of grew even more. I kind of started my own editing business, my first editing business, really on a website called, I think it used to be called something else, but it's Upwork now, where you can kind of post jobs or post, yeah, jobs where you're kind of looking for work. And I think at the time I was 14, grade 9, yeah, 14, and I was looking for editing gigs, and I was charging $10 per gig, right? And I didn't tell people I was 14, but I got a couple of gigs there. People started paying me $10, $15, and I thought I was kind of I was over the moon with that, right? Um, that was my first kind of paying gig when it comes to video. And then after grade 9, I kind of slowly drifted away from video and being in that creative state, and just focused on school and focused on what I wanted to do next in university. All right, so then grade 12 came around. Um, I was looking into film school, but I would have to move to Toronto because Toronto was kind of like the only city that offered film school or film courses. And then I thought, well, I didn't really have the money to kind of move to Toronto. And so I also knew that it was going to be hard to get a job after going to film school. Not a lot of people get really, high paying jobs out of film school in Canada. You would have to go to somewhere in LA or somewhere in the US, right? So I ultimately made the decision to pursue business, specifically marketing, concentration in marketing in Carleton University, because I thought maybe if I learned marketing, I could create advertisements, right? I can still, have that video aspect to the job, right? And so I went to Carleton. First, 2 years. Not gonna lie, I didn't really try as hard as I could. I'm like all students, right? We procrastinated and all that. Didn't really go anywhere in the first 2 years. I remember the first year I just didn't really have a. I don't think I really had a job, really a consistent job, especially in the summer where I know a lot of people were taking internships and co-op, right? So first year and second year, didn't really have like a stable income or stable job. I was kind of just messing around, kind of wasting a lot of time really. And then third year summer, I took a job for the city of Ottawa. That was kind of my first consistent paying job. And then, COVID happened, right? Yeah, I believe it was 2020 or 2021. COVID happened going into my fourth year. And that's when quickly realized, like, I was like, "Oh, shit," like, everyone else around me had, experience, did co-op and all this, and had, like, actually, like, corporate jobs, government jobs, and I was here just didn't really have much under my belt, really, right? I just worked for the city of Ottawa. And that's when I really thought about what do I need to do, um, so that I can kinda succeed in the future, or whatever, right? So I started looking for jobs, remote jobs during COVID, and it was really hard. Everyone's getting laid off, right? And then one day, one of my ex co-founder, or my buddy Brandon, he kind of pitched me the idea of painting, right? So going into student painting, and so I did that before, just briefly. I did um, student window washing, and I wasn't really a big fan of it, but I thought, it's COVID, not a lot of people are hiring, and this is an outside job. I've been inside for a while now, right? So I decided, take that job to do student painting, right? And so we did that for the summer. It was honestly really brutal. Not going to name the company, but the management was not very good. It was brutal hot, right? It was super hot during the summer, and we're just painting, yeah, painting decks, painting roofs, risking our lives on roofs and ladders, and I was not a big fan of it. And that's when me and Brandon kind of realized that we wanted to, you know, didn't want to be in that situation, right? Where we want to control our own kind of schedule, right? And then one day we were painting this client's deck. Shout out to Tuan. So Tuan was the client who we were painting for, and we were painting this person's deck for a week. And every single day during that week, Tuan, he invited us in for dinner at the end of the day. Right, he fed us, and during those dinners was probably the most eye-opening conversations I've had with someone, because he was talking about his experience with entrepreneurship and the stories he's went through, and that kind of inspired me and Brandon to potentially start a business. And so after that, we were talking. We were talking a lot during jobs where what kind of business we wanted to start, right? And at first, we wanted to start a t-shirt business, and so we planned out this whole thing for this t-shirt business, and we called it Surgo, right? And near the end of the summer, we went back to Tuan, the guy who we painted the deck for, and we presented the idea of starting this t-shirt business, right? And Tuan, he said, guys, like, this is great and all that you guys want to start your own business, but why, like, how are you going to promote this, right? Because the t-shirt or the clothing industry is really competitive, it's really hard, right? And then me and Brandon thought, we're like, well, I'm really good at video, I have a passion for video, and Brandon had a passion for photography. And so he said, well, guys, you guys in the wrong business, you guys should be doing that instead, um videography and photography, because that's your actual passion. And so that's when we realized, oh, maybe we should try that, right? Especially during COVID, where a lot of local businesses in Ottawa, they didn't have a digital footprint, right? They relied a lot on when people were just coming, passing by the stores or whatever, word of mouth. But once COVID happened, no one had like a social presence, or a lot of the local businesses in Ottawa didn't have a social presence. And so that's when we thought this would be a great opportunity, right? Not knowing that marketing was the first thing people would cut, because it's expensive, right? But we didn't know that at the time. We just thought, oh, these companies or these local businesses just they need digital marketing or content. And so we went around. I going back to where I grew up, Westboro. I knew a lot of people who owned local businesses. I had connections when I was in Westboro. And so the first person I hit up, I remember it was um, a woman who I've known since I was a kid, and she owns a really healthy smoothie bar called Raw Pulp and Grind in Ottawa. It's rebranded to something else, but back then it was called Raw Pulp and Grind. And I remember, pitching to her free content. Hey, I I wanna do some free shoots for you, free photos, free videos, just so we can kind of make or create our portfolio, right? So that was kind of like our first gig or non-paying gig. Was just essentially a free project to do for this company. And so we did it. We created a video, took some photos. It was super awesome. She loved it, and then she wanted us to kind of continue doing more stuff. And so we worked with the social media manager, and then we did like a 12. This was during Christmas time, and we did like a 12-day Christmas special where we took photos and we bought a bunch of um, props and such, our Christmas theme, and shot those. And then those turned out really well. And we got a lot of good feedback. And that's when the owner of the Raw Pulp and Grind, she kind of let everyone know in her circle that, by the way, these guys are doing really awesome content for me. This is what it looks like. And then other people started asking, oh, can you like connect me with them? And so she connected us with another local business called Morning Owl. And Morning Owl, I believe, was one of our first paying gigs. And that was really, really exciting. I remember, me and Brandon were kind of discussing how much we should charge Morning Owl. And they wanted like videos and photos. And looking back at it now, we undercharged a lot. right? We were charging $300, and then I was even contemplating bringing it down just in case they said no. But $300 for uh, a video and then a bunch of photos that they can use for their marketing. And so we did that. They were happy with it, and then they started referring us to other local businesses. So we did a couple work for them, and then our boss from the student painting franchise or student painting company um, wanted us to do some video for him, and that was one of our first high paying gigs on a monthly retainer too. So before that, we were doing these one off projects, but this was kind of like our first monthly retainer. And I remember it was around like $1,500 a month, which was pretty insane to us, right? Pretty insane. But we would have to go out to these job sites, these painting job sites, and take content there. So it took up a lot of our day, right? And then one day, I get a message from a guy named Brian. So Brian, who's my co-founder now, um, reached out to me, and he had COVID, and so he said he was looking into some of the stuff we were creating at the time, and he said that he had a client that he had to shoot for the next day, but he couldn't go because he had COVID, right? And he messaged us saying, "Yo, can you boys kind of take it? Can you like, I'll give you my light and all that." And so we're like, "Yeah, sure, we can totally do this," right? Went over, and the client was Cinnaholic. So Cinnaholic on Lansdowne is a big cinnamon roll or Cinnabon or not Cinnabon, cinnamon roll bakery or franchise company thing. It was huge in North America. I think they have over like 50 locations. But we went over there, filmed some content. I edited it and then submitted it. And then Brian was like super happy with it. Client was super happy with it. And that's where our relationship with Brian kind of first started. After that job, where he kind of just he wanted to collaborate more on other projects. And so this is where a pretty huge turning point or pivot in our business happened, is when Brian wanted to eventually, you know, merge with us, right? Because for a while we've been working on so many different projects, and he essentially wanted to merge with us. And so we decided to merge together, me, Brian, and Brandon. And he had a bunch of clients that we didn't know was, or a bunch of different projects that we didn't know was possible for video. So one of them was creating TikToks and or short form videos for coaches and consultants. And at the time, we were so new to it, right? We didn't know that this was like a thing. And he was working with a dating coach named Colin Malone. And this dating coach, we were doing videos for. We scripted out, we edited, and we filmed it. And this was our first TikTok client, right? He wanted 20 videos a month for around $750 a month, right? So that was another retainer. And that's when we started realizing, the power of retainers really, but I'll get into that later. But yeah, so we did 20 videos a month for this dating coach in Ottawa. And in 2 months, we blew up his account from almost like 100 to 15 or 10 to 15,000 followers. And we thought, holy crap, like this is crazy. We just blew up this guy's account, right? 10, 15,000 followers, a couple of videos at 100,000 views, millions of views. And we thought, oh my God, we have something here, right? And so that dating coach actually referred us to another coach who was a public speaking coach. And that public speaking coach, his name is Majid. We still work to this day. And Majid wanted the exact same thing, 20 videos a month, and he wants us to post them and edit them. And so that's what we did. First batch, he actually filmed it himself with another person named AC. Shout out to AC, amazing videographer in Ottawa. And then he gave us those 20 videos. We edited it and we posted it. And then our first shoot together, we only posted at the time we only posted maybe 5 or 6 videos when we first shot our first batch together with Majid. And I remember to this day where we were shooting, and during the shoot, we just saw his account going from 100 followers to like 1,000 followers. And we thought, oh crap, this is pretty insane. Within like 2 hours of us shooting, or an hour or 30 minutes of us shooting, he already grew his account from 100 to like 1,000 followers. And so, we kept shooting. The whole shoot lasted around 3-4 hours. but every hour we were getting like 3,000 more followers, 4,000 more followers. And at the end of the shoot, we were already at 10,000 followers. And we were just like, holy crap, this is insane. Like this guy just got 10,000 followers in the span of like 3-4 hours on TikTok. And so Majid, he kind of shouted us out, or after the shoot, he went on live on his Facebook and shouted us out, saying, "Hey guys, we're just doing the shoot, and when we were shooting, my account just went up to 10,000 followers. These guys are amazing. Blah blah blah. Their company name is Surgo Media." And then the next day, why I woke up, opened up his account, and his account was at around, I think, 40,000 followers. So he grew like 30,000 followers within overnight, right? And I was freaking texting the group chat being like, "Yo, look at Majid's account. This is crazy right now." And everyone was like excited. Everyone was really happy with the results, and we were just like, "Oh my god, we should like pursue." This is when we thought we should pursue doing TikToks and short form content for business owners and entrepreneurs. And so on top of that, what we didn't realize is that when Majid made that video of us and post on Facebook, a bunch of his network, or a bunch of people in his network, started reaching out to us. And then he made a post 3 days later where he said, or his account got to 100,000 followers, right? 100,000 followers in a week. And he made another post kind of shouting us out. And then that's when the floodgates were just open. Everyone in his network started messaging us. Our mentor Twan made a post about us saying these guys just got one of my buddies to 100,000 followers in less than 7 days, and more people just started messaging us, adding us on Facebook, and wanting to book a call with us. And this is when it kind of took off, really, or this is where it kind of took off, and where I realized that we had something in our hands, right? An opportunity. And we took a bunch of calls. All three of us were on calls together. Me, Brandon, and Brian were taking on these calls, and these people just wanted TikToks or looking at us like we're like the experts. And really, we went in not thinking like a strategy. Really, we just went in thinking, oh, let's just make really high quality videos, put some really good edits, and then post them, right? But yeah, a bunch of people book calls with us. I think we close in a week. We close around, oh, man, I think 4 or 5 people, and we were charging them like, again, we were at the time we were undercharging them, but we were charging them like 2,500 a month for 3 months minimum, right? For 5 or 6 entrepreneurs, and we closed all of them, right? And we thought, oh my god, we never made this much. I never seen this much money come in at the same time during that week, right? And I was like, we were all just on a high, really. But then we quickly realized, like, oh shit, like, how do we service these people, right? With these people, we scripted, we had to script out all their content, right? And we promised 60 pieces of content for 3 months, right? For 5 or 6 of these people. And they wanted us to fly over there, and we were too scared to I remember we were too scared to ask them to pay for our flight tickets. And so we ended up taking in the cost of those flight tickets, right? Um, and then all of them were in the US. And so we flew to Miami, flew to Texas and New York, and we shot a bunch of content for our clients, and it was like super, super awesome. Super awesome. And flew back. And honestly, those first 5 or 6 clients, there's a lot of mistakes with our deliverables and fulfillment, just because it was kind of our first time doing it. But a couple of them we delivered really, really good results for. But ultimately, we kind of look at them as kind of like our guinea pigs, because we literally didn't have a process or a structure in place. We kind of just winged it. We just made a loose structure and winged it. But yeah, that's kind of how we first started, and ever since then, we just been creating short form content for entrepreneurs, companies, entrepreneurs and companies, and it's been like 2.5 years now. But yeah, we're kind of like the short form guys now in our circle and in Ottawa, I guess. So yeah, that's kind of how we started. I know I was kind of like all over the place, but yeah.
That's the route, right? It's never really straight line A to B, etc. It's more so just encompassing what's kind of gone on in your career
Yeah.
today. No, but that was great. So many different points I want to kind of get to, just even from what you said so far.
Yeah, for sure.
So typically what I like doing is just kind of going back to the beginning of your route and then kind of working our way through it.
Yeah.
Um, so when you were talking about it, right, even let's say when you were a kid, right, and you're kind of in Westboro, kind of your second neighborhood, were
Yeah.
you? I know you said later on, like you knew a lot of businesses in the area. Was it because you were just like in those circles, you kind of remembered engaging with them, and that's how that relationship formed?
Yeah, yeah. So the family my mom was working for, they the dad was a business owner. He owns a company, a private company, a lot like a lobbying company. And then so and then my brother or my brother pretty much, he has friends whose, their parents own businesses too, right? And so I was always like in that circle. I was always in that circle and I met, these parents and all this just because of my association with this other family. And so we kind of developed a relationship over time and, you know, um, the like my brother's friends and family kind of knew me. And yeah, it didn't feel like I was, it felt natural to reach out to them. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And then I guess as you kind of went on and you're discussing university a bit too, do you
Mhm.
think so I had a similar experience, just kinda go back to that. My first 2 years
Right.
of university, didn't really
Right.
try at all,
Yeah.
was more so just kinda going to my part-time job, and that's what I was focusing on.
Mhm.
Um, did you pick marketing because you didn't really know what to pick, or is it because you had maybe, I don't know, an idea? Or do you think there was some part of you deep down or like, "Oh, like, I was always so" you interacted with so many, let's say, businesses growing up,
Mhm.
that maybe that was something you're starting to think of a tad?
Yeah, well, the main reason I picked marketing was because, I wanted to get into, like, video school, but I knew that it was hard to get a job if you go to film school, and, the pay isn't, like, the best unless you're, like, working in Hollywood or whatever, right? And so the next thing in my mind was, oh, let me just get into business because, I couldn't get into any science program because I didn't take a lot of science courses in high school, and so really the only option was business or like an arts degree, and so I thought the most practical thing to take was business and more specifically marketing because I kind of connected the two where I love video and marketing has opportunities to do, advertising and video. So I'm gonna pick marketing, right? So that's how I got, that's how I picked. That's how my rationale for picking marketing in Carleton was.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. I remember you
Yeah,
touched on that, but I just forgot a bit.
yeah,
But no, no,
yeah. No worries.
that makes sense. And I guess as you're going on too, right? You kind of got to the point where it was COVID. You didn't really know what to do. I think a lot of us were kind of in that
Yeah,
situation. I know, like the day COVID happened, my buddy and I were going to Toronto. We're going for
yeah,
interviews actually, and once we got there, we got a bunch of emails saying like everything was
yeah,
canceled, and we were
yeah.
driving home. The world's shutting down, and it's like a 5 hour drive right
Right,
back to Ottawa, and we're like, oh man, like what are we gonna do with our lives now? Like as you were saying, everyone was
right,
losing jobs,
right. It's
businesses
crazy.
were closing, and then we're like,
Yeah,
like we just graduated. So on that note, I know you mentioned then Brandon kind of reached out to you, and that's how you guys got involved with that painting business. And I
yeah,
kind of want to get into your sorry, your first, let's say, interactions with Tuan. So for those that don't
yeah.
know, Tuan's actually coming on the podcast.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
later this week when we're recording, but it should be an episode or two just after Alexi, so there should be some context there as well. But
Shout
yeah,
out to
maybe if you can
Tuan,
kind of,
man,
yeah, if you want to touch on that a bit and kind of share a bit more.
about like my relationship with Tuan.
Yeah, yeah, just because like I think as you're mentioning, right, just I think it's rare, right? I'm sure you had a bunch of different clients when you're doing that painting business, right? But
Yeah,
how often were they really inviting you, to dinner
yeah.
and maybe
Like never.
sharing some advice or even just kind of,
Yeah,
treating you well? I'm sure sometimes the
yeah.
painting people are like, "Hey, like hurry up and like get off, don't scratch my
Yeah,
house,"
yeah, yeah,
or something like
yeah,
that. So that
yeah,
takes like a certain type of person anyways, just to kind of bring you into
100%.
their home and share some life
Yeah,
advice.
100%, because back then, like, everyone was kinda nervous about, interacting with each other just because of COVID, and no one was really some jobs, I didn't even know who the owner was, like, I didn't even talk to them, I don't even know what they look like, and, again, what like, this one day, We just got on this job where it happens to be Tuan's deck, and we were just, painting it for the whole week. And he always just invites us in like every single day and just and cooks this amazing dinner. It's not just like some terrible food. It was like actually some pretty expensive food, like some pork chop steaks and all that. And he would just talk to us for like 2 hours after the job was finished, about his entrepreneurship journey, like his crazy stories, crazy party stories, how much money that his business created, and how his office or company got acquired by Arlene Dickinson. And we thought like, holy crap, this is a crazy, crazy, crazy lifestyle he was living. And he did it when he was in his 20s, bro. He did it in his 20s, right out of university. He was already super successful, and he just knew a bunch of like other people too, who like Harry Rosen, the owner of Harry Rosen. He knows that person. He knows the person from who created Ethereum. He's just so well connected, and that really just made me think, oh my god, like I'm not gonna get this from a 9 to 5, really, you know. And the way he was like explaining his lifestyle, where he had control of everything, really, working his own hours, servicing the community that he loved. And that's something that I really wanted to do, really, is, number one, service the community, and also create, a life where I have control over. Right. And yeah, and then ever since then, like our relationship with Tuan, he's still our mentor today. He's our day one. He's the reason why we're in business. Without him, I wouldn't even be here, to be honest. I wouldn't even be able to do this business. He's the one that kind of pushed us over the edge. And he helped us a lot at the beginning, introducing us to a lot of different people. So yeah.
No, that makes a ton of sense. And to be honest, it's crazy how, who would have thought if, like, from doing that painting job after COVID, when you're just like, hey, like, I'll just do it, that you'd meet
Yeah.
someone like that, right? And to be honest, even not to the same extent, but even just some of the people I get to meet on the podcast, so just hearing all the different stories, their nuggets that they can
Right.
share, it really does have a big impact. And I guess
Right.
kind of going on from there, I know you're mentioning you and Brandon were kind of meeting with him throughout the week. He's talking to you about businesses, and you're like, hey, like, this is
Mhm.
something that maybe we should look into as well.
Yeah.
Um, was the t-shirt one the first and only one idea that you guys had, or was there other things you're thinking of, and then Tuan kind of maybe pushed you in the right direction, or guided you in the right direction, I should say?
Yeah. So before, actually, Brandon was gonna run like a t-shirt business with someone else, right? And so he already had the idea in mind, but he wanted to essentially partner up with me because, I kind of had a better, I guess, mindset on wanting to start a business. And so, yeah, there wasn't really anything else aside from the t-shirt business where we're thinking of. We were just so set on this t-shirt business, and we're talking about how we're going to promote it. Oh, we're going to do video, we're going to do photography, we're going to try and nurture a whole community around this brand called Surgo. And then we obviously we pitched it to Tuan. Funny enough, Tuan, he has his own t-shirt business too, and so that got on Ellen, or I think a bunch of, like, Ellen wore it and all that. And it was like a t-shirt business called, or it was a brand called just or Hug It Out. And it was featured on so many different talk shows, which was so crazy. Anyways, yeah, he was talking to us about it, and he was telling us all like the obstacles that he faced with his own clothing brand, which is like so funny. It was like a passion thing for him. It wasn't really like his main business, but he was talking about, the obstacles and all that. And he was like, it's really hard to promote or to build a brand around, clothing, because there's so many people out there doing clothing. So, like, how are you guys going to promote it? And then we're like, oh, video. Like, I have a passion for video. I've been editing since I was a freaking kid. I was doing videography since I was a kid. Brandon was like, yeah, I've been doing photography all throughout high school. I love photography. And that's how we're going to promote it. And then, yeah, he pretty much just like talked some sense into us, being like, guys, like, t-shirts, not even like running a clothing company isn't even your passion. The passion I see here is creating videos or creating content through video and photos. Why don't you guys do that? Offer some free content to local businesses, because everyone's struggling in COVID, right? Why don't you do that? Um, and why don't you do it? And I also want to mention, he owns a sushi restaurant, and so we did some work for him for free for a sushi restaurant too. I just want to point that out. But um, yeah, and that's kind of like his that's when he kind of pushed us into that route of creating content for businesses and entrepreneurs.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. And I guess one of the things that you mentioned there that I kind of want to dive deeper into, you're talking about, going towards your passion, right? Yours was video, Brandon's was
Mhm.
photography. What was that like? Because obviously I know you were mentioning how you guys been able to build it for the last number of years. Now, obviously some things have changed too, but what
Right.
was that experience like? Because obviously I think sometimes when people hear starting a business, about your passion, it sounds like rainbows and butterflies, but I'm sure
Right.
there's been ups and downs, times
Yeah.
you're like, oh, like let's just not do this anymore. So what has that been like, and what was your experience through it?
Ye Yeah, yeah. So at the beginning, yeah, so we were painting, right? And when we had this idea about starting the media business, I didn't have a camera. Well, I had a camera, but it was terrible, right? I could have sold it for I sold it for like $100, but I didn't have a camera. Brandon didn't. I think Brandon didn't have a camera either. And so that last paycheck that came in from that, you know, painting, the painting job, I remember we were kind of discussing, oh, we can just use our iPhones. And so we try to test out our iPhones. And we're like, if we're gonna create videos, we might as well try and invest into um, camera. And so I was looking through the marketplace, bought a camera for 900 bucks, and that was my whole paycheck, my whole last paycheck. And he bought a camera as well for photography. That's specifically for photography, and I bought one specifically for video. And I remember just talking to my parents, like, "Yo, I'm gonna buy a camera," and they were like, "Don't do that. Like, why do you need a camera for?" I said, "I wanna start, creating content or shooting videos for businesses." Coming from like, immigrant parents, I know for those who are listening or who are Asian or have immigrant parents, you can probably resonate with me. Is that sometimes your parents, they just want the safe option because they came all the way out here to provide for you and have a better life, and for you to kind of just like, I was thinking in my head, I didn't want to throw this opportunity away, right? So part of me was also thinking maybe I should just get like a government job or a job that a 9 to 5, right? But ultimately, I just really wanted to do video. So that was kind of hard at the beginning. I know 900 bucks wasn't a lot, but also during that time, I didn't really have another option. I could apply for jobs and stuff. I could have applied for other jobs, but it was like COVID and all that, and I was just like, working for someone else just left a really bad taste in my mouth. Um, and so, yeah, it was kinda hard in the beginning, but we quickly made our return on investment back after, like, 4 or 5 months. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that was well worth it. And to be honest, as you're just discussing it there, so my parents are immigrants as well, but they kind of came here when they were 4 or 5, so they grew up in Canada.
Oh, snap,
So
okay,
it's a
yeah.
bit different from that experience.
Right.
For my dad was he ended up being like a CFO, and he was in business, and he'd kind of
Mhm.
introduce me to different types of business people. So
Right.
when I was kind of that same situation with COVID, I also previously had a government job, and when I quit it, they were not happy about that because it was the safe thing, and kind of similar to
Right.
that. So when you were saying that, it was just kind of resonating with me. But then
Mhm.
I probably was a little more confident to potentially do it just because
Right.
I saw different businesses. But no, it's interesting. And I'm curious too when you think about it, like how many people don't end up doing so, like, hey, let me just do that safe option, right?
Yeah.
So I'm sure that
Yeah.
definitely impacts a bunch of people. And I guess then once you and Brandon have your cameras specifically for video and photography, you
Mhm.
start doing those free jobs, getting
Mhm.
those content pieces for your portfolio. How are you
Yeah.
guys then maybe evolving your skill sets, right? Because obviously, as you're discussing it, I know you said
Mhm.
you did some things previously, probably same thing with Brandon having it being his passion, but then
Mhm.
obviously when you're doing it for a company and you're doing it like for a business, you have to
Yeah.
level up somewhat quickly. So what types of things were you guys doing to kind of develop those skill sets?
Yeah, yeah. So I was watching okay, so a lot of it at the beginning, a lot of it I would credit to Twan. He's been there, helping us kinda develop a mindset of an entrepreneur, and kinda helping us with, like, contracts and, sales and marketing and operation wise. And so a lot of that credit at the beginning goes to Twan. We learned a lot about, negotiating. I wasn't the sales guy, Brandon was, but we learned a lot about negotiating. We learned about contracts, and all that, and developing a system where it doesn't use a lot of our time, right? Or yeah, stuff like that. A lot of processes. But then later on, we were again we were I wanted to mention also, like, the first year we were working straight off referrals, just referral, referral, referral. But we knew it wasn't as sustainable, and so we kinda looked into, watching other people's content on how to get more clients, how to get booked appointments, and all this good stuff. And I was kinda in charge of the marketing, so I learned a ton from just free content on the internet. People putting out content, how we're helping our clients put out content. We were watching these guys talking about how to how to get booked appointments, how to create an offer, how to do all this stuff. And so, yeah, I would say a lot of it came from Tuan, and then a lot of it came from the content itself that we were watching on YouTube and just learning, organically, right?
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. I think that's kind of the unique opportunity we have in like this day
Mhm.
and age, right? Where you can kind of Google something, have your question, or just kind of
Yeah.
find those answers from others. And I guess while you were sharing your route, you kind of shared how you kind of went through some things. I know one of the things you mentioned that you wanted to get into earlier was the importance of retainers. So maybe if you want to get into that and kind of discuss that area.
Yeah, yeah. So retainers, I mean, yeah, the importance of retainers really, when you first start out, like it's a predictable, it's a how do I say it? It's like it's a way where your cash flow is predictable. So if I were to charge someone like $1,500 in the minimum and per month, I'd know coming in every single month, $1,500 is coming in every single month during the duration of that contract. Whereas before we were charging one-time project or one-time projects where, oh, we'll do this video for you for like $1,000. But then once that's fulfilled, we're like, oh crap, like how do we now we got to find another person and another person to make sure our cash flow is coming in. But that only works once you can charge a lot more. So if I was charging somewhere like 10,000 for one project, it's a lot better than just charging low. I do still think one-time projects are good, or one-time payments are good. They just have to be like a high ticket price. But retainers, if you're just starting out, I would always try to kind of go for retainers or try to lock someone down for a minimum monthly retainer.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, and obviously that helped you guys to grow a
Mhm.
bit further. And you mentioned that while you're going through the route, and then I guess as time has gone on, and I guess fast forwarding a bit further, obviously the business was growing, it was
Yeah.
developing. How did you guys get to where you are today, where went from Surgo Media, Surgo Studios, and now you have another partner coming in to help you guys out. So what was that
Yeah.
process like? Because obviously that's a unique experience that maybe not everyone gets to have.
Yeah, yeah. So in the summer, really, we kind of made our Brandon kind of just Brandon decided not to be a part with us. We essentially just we bought him out. Can't really talk too much about it, but now it was just like me and Brandon or me and Brian. And during that phase too, we were working with this other company named called the Enigmatic Group of Companies. And we've been in touch with them for 2 3 years or 2 years now, like pretty much the duration of our business. And the see the owner of that company, they've been also, I would say, another mentor of ours, right? Met mutuals through Twan, but um they they wanted to be a part of of our business, right? Because um, they really believe that our skill set could benefit other businesses that they would work with, right? Because video marketing is something that a lot of people are looking for, especially in today's age where we're living in an attention-based economy where content is, I wouldn't say content is king, content is the king maker, right? We see a lot of entrepreneurs out there creating content. So they wanted to be a part of our business. I can't really talk too much about the deal that we made, but all I could say is that I it was an amazing it's an amazing experience so far. We've been in business together since September, and so far it's been really really awesome. We went to Toronto for a whole month. I think I mentioned that to you privately, but we were in Toronto for a whole month. We met a bunch of awesome clients, or our own clients who were in Toronto, and they set up a bunch of awesome meetings with these heavy hitters. Again, I wish I could talk about more of it, but I can't really talk much of, the inner workings of that. but met a bunch of awesome people, went to awesome restaurants, and they kind of just, taught us a lot when it comes to business, and they're helping us financially as well to for that growth as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you're saying you don't want to share how much you were required for, or at least the
I
the
can't.
third? No,
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I
I'm
can't
just
say
kidding.
it.
I'm
I
just
can't.
kidding.
I can't
Yeah,
say
I
it.
know
I
you're
would.
just saying, "Oh, I can't share too much." So I thought it'd be funny to ask that. But
Yeah,
no,
there's a
no,
lot of things I just can't say. So it's kind
no,
of
no.
it's a weird
I'm just
subject
kidding.
to talk about, but yeah, I can't really say much.
No, no, I'm just playing. That's all good. It's great just sharing your route and just getting into it. I just
Yeah.
thought it'd be funny to say that.
Right.
Anyway, no, that's been great to hear. And I know when we were messaging about it, it's kind of really cool to hear that you guys were in Toronto. And even I think when we met, it was pretty close to when you guys first started Surgo. And as I mentioned off the top of the podcast, I kind of got introduced to you and Brandon just through a mutual connection. They're like, oh, hey, you should talk
Yeah.
to these guys too. They're in Ottawa. And we kind of went on from there. But
Yeah.
as we kind of gone through your route so far, obviously, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of exciting things that are going to
Mhm.
happen in the near future
Yeah.
and even years from now. So maybe we'll have to record an episode in 10 years and hear about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but
Yeah,
with
no,
that though,
this
I
new
like
year's
to
gonna be
end
great.
exactly. We'll call it the route two or the comeback route, something like that.
Mhm.
But one of the things I like to do at the end of each episode, as we kind of go through everyone's route, just kind of put a nice bow on it, is I want to give you two different scenarios. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is episode 153 or 153 episodes. I've been saying I'm going to live until I'm 103. I'm going to be on a rocking
Damn.
chair, just thinking about all the good times, right? So I'm going to put
Right.
Lexi in the same situation, right? You're going to 103.
Mhm.
You're on a rocking chair, and you're thinking about all the cool things that you've done in your career to date. What's maybe
Right.
one story so far that would stand out to you that you would be able to remember and think back to when you're 103 and be like, wow, like what a moment.
So far?
Yeah, so far, because obviously it
Oh,
hasn't happened
man.
yet.
Yeah, yeah. So, one story that stood out to me is when we first landed in Miami. That was the first time I've actually traveled alone to a different city in the US, and especially just for business with two of my best friends, right? Brandon and Brian. And so when we first landed in Miami and we're like, I was just like, holy crap, this is it. It's like I was thinking to myself, we made it, man. I don't have to go back to Ottawa, right? We made it. But I just remember the our time there. We met so many cool people where I'm just like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here right now. We were on a penthouse, met people who were like in their seven-figure range or high set seven figures, eight figures. And um being in that city was just so beautiful, right? I just remember one specific night after our shoot with a client, we all just biked. We took a city bike, and biked all around Miami for like 3 hours, 4 hours, and it was just so perfect because the weather was nice. And thinking back home, it was super cold, but that was kind of one memory I cherish, right? Um, for now, really, is that trip to Miami, meeting all these cool people and having these awesome adventures during our time there, and then just going to the beach, smoking cigars, having drinks, eating good food. It was quite amazing. I will say it was quite amazing.
Yeah, I'm sure it's like a breakthrough moment, right? Almost just kind of
Mhm.
showing like everything that's kind of happened to date. So that's
Yeah,
very cool.
crazy.
And I guess, yeah, the last question I have is let's go back in time, right? So
Mhm.
we go into the future. Let's go back in time. And let's say it's when you're just about to go to Carleton or you're in
Yeah,
those 2 years when you're not really trying at school, you're just kind of showing
yeah.
up and going
Oh
through the
man.
motions of it all.
Yeah.
What's one piece of advice that you've learned to date so far that if you go back in time, have a conversation with however old you'd be, 17, 18, 19 years old, 20, what would you say to that younger version of yourself that you've now learned?
Oh man, yeah. I actually think about this a lot. Telling myself back then what would I would tell myself back then is it's okay if you can't figure it out now, but just don't waste your time. I mean, I spent a lot of time just wasting time, just watching YouTube videos, watching movies, when I could just when I could have been just like honing my own skill sets, right? Investing in myself with different skill sets. That's something I want to give out to anyone who's kind of going into university or don't know what to do. It's okay if you don't know what to do yet. just keep investing in yourself. And I would just say try not to, we're only here for a short time, right? I always think about this is that back then I was like, damn, I just wasted too much time just doing stupid stuff, just playing video games and all this. But it's okay to play video games. I'm just saying try and invest into your skill sets. Try a bunch of different things. Don't be comfortable, right? Try a bunch of different things, and you'll end up finding something you'd love doing, right? That's kind of like my advice, really.
Yeah, no, I think it's perfect. That's why I like asking at the end, 'cause it kind of just puts
Mhm.
like a nice bow on it all. And to be honest,
Yeah.
I'm in the mindset everything kind of happens, and I'm
Right.
sure you had to go through those times and to get to where
Yeah.
you are now, and who would have known
Yeah.
otherwise. But no, it's been perfect so far, Lexi. Unless there's anything else you'd like to share, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your route.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me, Chris. Nothing really to share. I guess you can, if you want to contact me, you can find me on IG at Alexei Dela Cuesta or on LinkedIn as well at Alexei Dela Cuesta. But no, again, thank you, Chris, for having me on the pod, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's it for episode 153. And as Alexi mentioned, if you follow us at the Routecast, we'll tag Alexi on all platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. And you can kind of connect with him there if you'd like. But thank you, and that's it for this week's episode.